Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Malaika Confidence Ali. I'm a student at Huntsville Hot Campus Foundation Level Batch 2. Our today's guest is Maya and our topic is water. So, Maya, are you ready for the first question?
Walaikum assalam. I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Okay. So, my first question is what makes water essential for life?
That is the perfect place to start. Water is basically the foundation of everything living. If you think about it, every single cell in your body is mostly made of water, and it's the medium that allows all the chemical reactions necessary for life to actually happen. It handles the heavy lifting, like transporting nutrients and oxygen to your cells and then flushing out the waste products that your body doesn't need. Without it, our organs would essentially just shut down. Beyond just us, it's the same for plants. They need water to move nutrients from the soil up into their leaves to create energy from sunlight. It's really the ultimate solvent, meaning it can dissolve more substances than any other liquid, which is why it's so much more effective at regulating our body temperature through sweating or keeping our joints lubricated. It's truly wild when you realize that water isn't just something we drink, it's the very thing that keeps the entire biological machine running.
Okay. So, my next question is how old is water on Earth?
That's a fascinating question because the answer is actually a bit mind blowing. Most of the water on Earth is way older than the Earth itself. Scientists believe that a huge portion of it arrived here billions of years ago, likely carried by icy asteroids and comets that slammed into the planet during its early formation. Some of the water in our oceans has been around for about 4.6 billion years, which means it was floating around in space before the planet we're standing on even existed. It's kind of humbling to think that every time you take a sip of water, you're essentially drinking something that's ancient cosmic history. The water just keeps recycling itself through the water cycle, evaporating from the ocean, falling as rain, and moving through plants and animals. So the same molecules that were here billions of years ago are still moving through us today.
Okay. So,
I'm ready for
my
the
next
next
question
one.
is why is water called the source of life?
It really is the ultimate source, isn't it? Because without water, the very concept of life as we know it simply couldn't exist. It's not just about quenching thirst, it's about the biological blueprints of every living organism. Think of it as the universal connector. In the human body, it's the primary component of blood, which is the highway that carries oxygen and nutrients to every single corner of your system. If that highway dries up, the cells starve and the heart can't pump. For plants, water is the engine for photosynthesis, the process where they turn sunlight into food. No water, no plants, no oxygen for us to breathe, and no food to eat. Even in the extreme environments of the deep ocean or frozen wastes, life manages to cling on because water is there. It's this incredible substance that allows chemicals to mix, react, and organize into the complex structures that make up a DNA molecule or protein. When we call it the source of life, we're acknowledging that water is the prerequisite for everything. It's the stage upon which the entire drama of existence is performed.
Okay, so
I'm all ears.
where did
Ready
Earth
when you
water
are.
come from?
This is like the $1 million question in geology. For a
Yes.
long time, there's been a bit of a debate, but the most widely accepted theory is that it came from space. We're talking about icy asteroids and comets that rained down on the early Earth billions of years ago. Think of it as a giant cosmic delivery service. These icy rocks hit the planet, and as they melted and evaporated, they created the steam and gas that eventually condensed into the first oceans. There's also another theory that some of the water might have been baked in from the start, meaning it was trapped inside minerals of the rocks that formed the Earth. So as the planet cooled down and volcanoes erupted, that internal water was released as steam into the atmosphere. It's likely a mix of both, really. Some from the inside and some delivered from the outside. It's just wild to imagine our entire ocean system starting as a few icy rocks and some volcanic gas.
Hmm. So, where are the main properties of Earth? What are the main properties of water? Sorry.
No worries at all, I've got you. If you're asking about the main properties of water, it's really a fascinating list because water behaves in ways that most other liquids just don't. First, there's its polarity, which is the fancy way of saying it has a slight positive charge on one end and a negative charge on the other. This makes it like a little magnet, which is why it's so good at dissolving things, which we already touched on when I called it the universal solvent. Then there's surface tension, which is a few times stronger than most liquids. That's why you see those perfect little beads of water on a leaf, or why some insects can actually walk right on top of the pond without sinking. And we can't forget about its density, specifically the fact that ice floats. In almost every other substance, the solid version is denser than the liquid version, but water is the opposite. When it freezes, it expands and becomes less dense, so ice stays on the surface of a lake. If ice sank, the oceans would freeze from the bottom up, and every single living thing in the water would be gone. And it's these weird, unique properties that make it possible for life to thrive on this planet.
Okay. So my next
I'm ready for the
question
next one.
is why is how does water support ecosystem?
I think you're asking how water supports ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the puzzle. Water isn't just a place where fish live, it's the circulatory system for the entire planet. In every ecosystem, whether it's a lush rainforest or a dry desert, water is the primary driver of everything. It's how nutrients move from the soil into plants, and then from plants into the animals that eat them. Without water, the energy from the sun couldn't be converted into food, and the whole food chain would just collapse. Plus, water creates these unique habitats, like wetlands and coral reefs, that support an incredible amount of biodiversity. These areas act like natural filters for the planet, cleaning the water and providing nurseries for countless species. It's basically the glue that holds all different biological communities together.
Okay. So my next question is why do humans need water daily?
It's the most basic need we have, but the reasons why are actually pretty complex. For starters, our bodies are mostly water, about 60% for adults, so we're essentially walking water tank. Every single thing we do, from thinking to moving, requires it. It regulates our body temperature. When we get too hot, we sweat, and as that water evaporates from our skin, it cools us down. Without that, we'd overheat in no time. Then there's the internal logistics. Water is what makes up our blood, which carries oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our body. It also protects our brain and spinal cord with a cushioning layer of fluid, and it keeps our joints lubricated so we can move without our bones grinding together. And on the digestion side, it's crucial for breaking down food and absorbing the nutrients our bodies need to stay healthy. It also helps the kidneys flush out toxins and waste products through urine. If we don't drink enough, our blood gets thicker, our heart has to work harder to pump it, and we start feeling fatigued, dizzy, or get those dreaded headaches. Basically, we need it daily because we're constantly losing water through breathing, sweating, and just existing. If we don't replace it, the whole system starts to glitch.
Okay, so my next question is mm, let me think.
I'm ready. Take your time. I'm not going
What
anywhere.
what percentage of Earth is covered by water?
That's a classic geography fact, but it's a really impressive number. About 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. It's so much that from space, the planet looks like a giant blue marble, which is why we call it the blue planet. But the wild part is that the vast majority of that, about 97%, is saltwater in our oceans. Only about 3% is freshwater. And even then, a lot of that is locked away in glaciers and ice caps, making the actual amount of water we can actually drink very small compared to the total.
Okay, so
I'm
my
ready.
next question
Whenever you've got the
is
next.
what percentage of the human body is water?
It's actually surprising how much of us is just liquid. On average, adults are about 60% water, but that number can shift depending on a few things. For example, infants are even higher, sometimes around 75%, because their bodies are still developing and they have a higher proportion of water in their tissues. Even our organs have their own specific percentages. Your brain and heart are about 73% water, and your lungs are around 83%. It really puts into perspective why dehydration hits us so hard when that percentage drops. It's even a little bit, your brain starts to feel foggy and your energy just plummets. We're basically just very complex, organized bags of salt water.
Okay, so
I'm
my
all set.
next question
Oh,
is how did ancient civilization depend on water?
I think you mean how ancient civilizations depended on water, right? Because that would be a very different conversation. If we're talking about water, it's a pretty straightforward answer. It was everything. Ancient civilizations didn't just use water, they literally built their entire societies around it. You think about the oldest and most powerful empires like ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, or the Indus Valley, they all started right next to major rivers. The Nile, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and the Indus were essentially the lifelines of these people. They couldn't just go to a store or turn on a tap, so they had to master the art of water management. They built these incredible irrigation systems, canals, and reservoirs to move water from the rivers into their fields, allowing them to grow enough food to support huge populations of cities. Without that reliable water source, they would have had nothing to eat, and their society would have collapsed before it even started. It wasn't just about farming, it was about transport and trade. Rivers were the highways of the ancient world. They used boats to move heavy stones for pyramids or to trade goods with other cities, making their economies grow. And of course, there was the spiritual side to it. Many of these civilizations saw water as a divine gift or a sacred element, which is why you find so many myths and gods associated with the river and the rain. It's wild to think that the entire trajectory of human history was basically decided by where the water was.
Okay, my
I'm
next
ready.
question
What's
is
next on the
what
list?
is the water cycle?
The water cycle is basically nature's way of recycling water over and over again. It's this continuous journey that water takes as it moves from the Earth's surface up into the atmosphere and then back down again. To break it down, it all starts with evaporation. That's when the sun heats up the water in our oceans, lakes, and rivers, turning it into water vapor, which is a gas that rises into the air. There's also this thing called transpiration, which is basically plants breathing water vapor out through their leaves. Then comes condensation. As that water vapor rises higher into the sky, it cools down and turns back into liquid droplets, which huddle together to form clouds. It's like a giant atmospheric sponge. And finally, there's precipitation. Once those clouds get too heavy and saturated, they can't hold any more water, so it falls back to Earth as rain, snow, or hail, depending on the temperature. Once it hits the ground, it becomes collection. The water flows over the land as runoff, filling back up our oceans and rivers, or it's seeping deep into the soil to become groundwater. And then the whole process just starts all over again. It's a perfectly closed system. meaning the water you're drinking today could have been the same water that a dinosaur once stepped in millions of years ago. Pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
Right? I'm ready for the next question whenever you are.
Okay, so why is fresh water important?
I think you mean why fresh water is so scarce, or maybe why it's locked away in certain places,
Why
right?
is why is fresh water is important?
Oh, that's a much more direct question. Freshwater is important because it's the only kind of water that living things can actually use to survive. While the oceans are massive, they're filled with salt, and if a human or a land animal drinks salt water, it actually dehydrates them faster because the body has to use more water just to flush out that extra salt. It's the fuel for everything on land. It's what we use for drinking, obviously, but it's also what we use to grow every single piece of food we eat. Imagine a world without fresh water, no crops, no livestock, no forests. It's the literal lifeblood of our terrestrial ecosystems. Beyond just survival, it's essential for hygiene and sanitation, which is how we prevent diseases from spreading. It's also used in almost every industrial process, from making the clothes we're wearing to generating electricity. Since it's such a tiny fraction of the Earth's total water, every single drop of it is precious. It's basically the most valuable resource on the planet because there's simply no substitute for it.
Okay. So my next
You're
question.
very welcome.
So my next question is, how do rivers shape human history?
That's a big, sweeping question, but it's really the story of how we've adapted to our environment. When you think about the shape of the land, the mountains, the rivers, and the coastlines, it's essentially the map that decided where people could survive and thrive. For thousands of years, humans couldn't just build a city anywhere. They had to follow the geography. Mountains acted like giant walls, isolating different groups of people, which is why you get such diverse languages and cultures. If a group was tucked away in a valley, they developed their own unique way of doing things because they didn't have much contact with anyone else. Then you have the coastlines and the rivers, which were the opposite of mountains. They were the open doors. People settled along the coasts because the ocean provided an endless source of food and a way to travel to distant lands. This is how trade started. The Mediterranean Sea, for example, was like a giant highway that connected the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians, allowing them to swap not just goods, but ideas, philosophies, and technologies. Even the soil itself shaped us. The fertile crescents of the world, places where the land was naturally rich and easy to farm, are where the first great cities were born. If the land was harsh, like in the middle of a desert or the frozen tundra, people had to become nomadic, moving constantly to find food, which created completely different social structures compared to the people living in permanent cities. So, in a way, the Earth didn't just provide a place for us to live. It actually wrote the first chapters of our history by deciding who we met, what we ate, and how we organized our societies. It's almost like the planet itself was the first architect of human civilization.
Okay, so how do rivers shape? So what role
I'm sorry.
does water play in agriculture?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you there.
I'm
Did you mean the
saying,
role water played? Wait,
what
let me make sure I've
role-
got this right.
Wait, listen. What role
No
does
rush at all.
water? What role does water play in agriculture?
Agriculture? Now we're talking about the real engine of society. Water is essentially the master key for agriculture. Without it, farming simply wouldn't exist as we know it. First and foremost, it's the delivery system for nutrients. Plants don't just eat soil, they need water to dissolve the minerals and nutrients in the ground so their roots can actually absorb them. It's like the water is the vehicle that carries the food into the plant. Then there's the process of photosynthesis, where plants use water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide to create the energy they need to grow. No water, no energy, no crops. But it's not just about the biology, it's about the engineering. For thousands of years, humans have had to figure out how to move water to where it's needed, leading to the creation of massive irrigation systems, from simple ditches to complex drip irrigation that delivers water precisely to the root of the plant. This allows us to grow food in places that would otherwise be deserts. And we can't forget about livestock, because animals need water just as much as plants do. So, when you look at a field of corn or a vineyard of grapes, you're really looking at a giant water management project. It's the difference between a successful harvest and a total famine.
Okay, so
Field of corn.
what are some common water relaxed
Wait,
expressions?
I'm not sure I follow you there. Were you describing a scene for the podcast, or did you have another question about water?
I said, what are some common water related expressions?
Oh, we have so many of those. English is just full of water metaphors because it's such a huge part of our lives. One of the most common ones is to be in deep water, which usually means you're in a lot of trouble or in a situation that's way over your head. Then you've got a drop in the bucket, which describes something so small it barely makes a difference to the overall problem. If someone is testing the waters, they're just cautiously trying something out before committing to it fully. And my personal favorite is water under the bridge, which is such a great way to say that something happened in the past, it's over now, and there's no point in holding on to the grudge. There's also keeping your head above water, which is that feeling of just barely managing to survive or keep up with your responsibilities when things get overwhelming. It's funny how we use these phrases to describe everything from our stress levels to our forgiveness. Do any of those sound familiar, or are you looking for a specific kind of expression?
Nothing. Why is water a symbol in many cultures?
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Water usually symbolizes two very different things: purity and power. On one hand, you have the idea of cleaning and renewal. In many religions and cultures, washing with water is a way to start over, like baptism or a ritual cleansing, where the water washes away the old or the impure to make room for something new and fresh. It's essentially a symbol of a clean slate. But then you have the other side, the raw, untamable power of the ocean or raging river. That's why water is often used to symbolize the subconscious or the depth of human emotion. Think about how we describe feelings as waves of grief or joy that crash over us. It represents the things that are deep, mysterious, and sometimes a bit scary, but also incredibly life-giving. And in some cultures, water is the ultimate symbol of adaptability. Because water can take the shape of whatever container it's in, it's often seen as a metaphor for being flexible, resilient, and able to flow around obstacles instead of just crashing into them. It's really a mirror for the human experience, isn't it? It can be as calm as a mirror or as destructive as a storm, just like we are.
Okay, so what myth and stories involves water?
Oh, there are so many.
Okay, wait.
Water is just too powerful. I'm waiting.
So, thank you for joining us on this journey through the story of water and elements, ancestors' life, and inspire language, language across cultures. We hope this discussion has deepened your appreciation for the incredible role water play in our world. Stay curious, stay informed, and remember that every drop matters. Thank you for listening. Everyone, this is our today's video. Hope so you like it. मिलते हैं किसी नेक्स्ट वीडियो में किसी नेक्स्ट टॉपिक के साथ. अब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज़.